Welcome to the Empowering Choices Parenting Podcast. My name is Joshua.
I'm Eric.
I am Lucas.
Eric and Lucas are licensed professional counselors. We have created an online community with a website and an app full of parenting resources and courses. Most importantly, all of this is centered around a private community where you can share your struggles with us and others. If you are interested in joining, please check out our website at empoweringchoices.community or search for our app in the App Store by searching Empowering Choices. For a small monthly fee, you receive everything I talked about and you help support the show. Plus, every time someone purchases a membership, we gift a membership on your behalf to someone who otherwise could not afford it. All right, now on with today's show.
We're going to be continuing our discussion based on the book, The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Siegel. We're going to be talking about emotions and the fact that maybe they don't last forever.
And children certainly think that they do. And I think I would probably argue that as adults, we've certainly had that experience also of like, you ever had an emotion and it felt like it was the end of the world? Like, I mean, I don't think that's a solely child-based experience.
Maybe some adults more than others, but yes.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, and then we're also counselors, and boy, is that certainly a topic that we talk about with clients of all ages, right? But this is about parents and about children. So we're going to kind of aim at that demographic. And as we've discussed in the kind of child's development of their brain, they don't have all of the circuits online yet. And so this experience of their emotions feeling overwhelming and eternal is a more distinct child experience than an adult. We do have the ability to be more, as adults, to be more self-reflective and go, all right, I feel like this is the end of the world, but my logical brain is able to occasionally come online and go, hang on, I've been through this before.
Right.
It's not actually the end of the world.
Well, and that's one of the parts of parenting is, as you know, as you said, that not all the circuits are firing yet because the brain is still developing. And children are primarily emotional-based thinkers, secondarily logical-based thinkers, where once that brain shift happens from 18 to 22, it flips. And so with kids, as they're learning about how to experience emotions, what emotions are, they're going to very quickly begin to think that that emotion is going to be something that lasts forever. You know, how many times has, a toddler, kind of thrown a fit, so to speak, and been very, very upset and, about maybe not getting to go outside, and then suddenly a cookie was offered and they're back to being happy and joyful. And that's a really good example of how the emotions can shift because emotions are chemical droplets.
In the brain.
In the brain.
Yep.
Yes. And with those chemical droplets, if you can find ways, and we work with adults on this, how do you find ways to be able to drop different chemicals into your brain that are attached to things you like, activities, enjoyable pieces, generally not things you don't like. It doesn't work well to shift that emotional to a positive if it's something you don't like. And as kids, as parents, we're trying to help kids to be able to just get a good foundation.
Well, and one of the things that you mentioned, I think, is kind of next to this conversation is that, like, if a child is upset about not being able to go outside and you offer them a cookie, their emotions are labile enough to just go clunk and, fall over into this different emotion because their emotional experience is kind of overwhelming, right? They go cookie and there's a positive experience and it overwhelms and they forget about the previous one. And there is genuinely a place for that as a skill set, as a parent of like, you are in an emotionally overwhelmed place. I'm going to do something that is just obviously distracting and fairly non sequitur, but you can snap a kid out of a terrible emotion into a less terrible one with a distraction, right? I've done this with, my small children, and they're upset about something, and you ask them, "Oh my gosh, what did you do with, grandma and grandpa when you were over at their house earlier today?" And it's an absolute non sequitur if you look at it, but they'll jump onto that and go, "Oh yeah, we were able to see the goats at the neighbor's house and da 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 da," and it just takes them out of that emotional experience, which isn't like the point we're aiming at with this, but it's just the fact that the children are they just live in their emotions. Right. And they don't have as much of a logical train of thought to be able to connect them together. And you can derail that train for, good and healthy purposes as an adult, as their parent. Let me rephrase.
And when they become a teenager and you attempt the exact same thing, you may have them cross their arms, look at you and go, "I see what you're doing."
Right. And that would be a development of their brain to be able to see more of those things.
It doesn't mean that it doesn't work at the same time.
If they're smiling while they're trying to frown at you.
Right. Because now they've got more of the logical connections. And, I've had teenagers do that. "I see what you're doing. Okay. What do you want to do with that?" And they may say, "I still want to be mad." "Okay, let me know when you don't." And they're like, "Fine, thank you. Give me my space to be mad," because you've got a little more of the freedom piece in there. But that means that you have taught them that the emotion won't last forever, and it can be a bit of a choice.
You're teaching them that they are literally choosing that. It's like, "Oh,
yes,
you told me you are actively choosing to be angry right now.
Yes.
Okay, let me know when you choose not to be."
Whereas when I worked in a treatment center, one of the people that I worked with there, when they would get overpowering emotions, sometimes they would come to me and say, "That snowboarder magazine that you have in your box that you told me that I can look at it any time, I need it now." And so they would then pull that in, and then that would begin to put some of those other droplets in there because they were a huge snowboarder and from a family line of huge snowboarders.
That's cool. And really, you take a child and offer Chuck E. Cheese and they get excited, and then that distracts. Even with offering something, you can then couple that with more developed things, such as a teenager. "Hey, I know you're mad. Let's go out for pizza, though, and talk about this. Let's talk through whatever." And at this, to some level, maybe they're still grumpy, but they will at least take you up on that offer, and let's do that. But then you're also doing deeper things, such as let's talk through, why we feel that way and what we can do. So that is very fascinating that kind of the same things are used, but it's morphing and changing as they're developing.
One of my teenagers about a month ago was having a very bad situation where they were not going to get to go and do something they really wanted to go and do. And so, the next week I asked him, "Well, how did that go?" And the person said, "Well, I thought my world was ending." And I said, "Okay, well, how do you feel now?" "Well, now I realize it wasn't, but it really felt like it was at that time." And so then we're talking about what got you through that. How did what were things that you used to be able to move past something that was very emotionally driven for you, but you were learning, "I'm not going to have a choice to be able to do this." With our grade schoolers, this is what we're focusing on to be able to help them get to that place as a teenager, where because acceptance is a coping skill. And you're trying to help kids learn that you can accept a certain circumstance. Yes, there are emotions there. You can acknowledge that those emotions don't feel good. You don't like it. You don't want it to be that way. But then it's still accept the parameters and now see what other choices do you have in that same situation. Back in the treatment center, I would help foster choices with the kids. And sometimes, because during the day they had to do journals every day, the same questions at the same time in the afternoon, 7 days a week.
Because that was part of the treatment program.
Because it was part of the treatment program. And so we're handing out journals, and I would always say, "Do you want a black pen, a red pen, or a blue pen?" And so there's 3 choices they had to be able to work with a situation they didn't like, with emotions they didn't like, with no real choices to get out of the situation. One day, one of the girls said to me, I would like a green pin.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I can envision someone being like, I want a big blue marker.
Right. And I said, I don't have a green pin. I only have these 3. And she said, on the desk, I can see it through the window.
Right,
there
that
it is,
one.
sitting right there. Can I use that one? I'm like, we have a green pin in there? Where did that come from? I'll go get it. You get a green pin.
Right, presumably I can go find the one you're pointing at.
Right. You know, because it wasn't, I don't even know. I still don't even know, who brought that green pin in. Mm-hmm. But it was very helpful. Mm-hmm. And so just being able to work with our kids in helping them to learn how to be able to rein in, gain control, be responsible for their own emotions. This is not something that just magically happens on a general basis.
I don't think any good things magically just happen.
Right, but it's amazing because Indy is our therapy dog, and I have had so many people say, "Oh my gosh, this is an incredible dog. Where did you get this dog?" As if it came into the world this well trained.
Because the accurate question is, how did he become this well trained? Not, he was just born this way.
Right, and nobody ever asked who trained this dog.
Where did you get him? As though they could get one from the same place and have the same result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I find that parenting today is kind of being looked at in the same way. Well, my kid is just going to eventually poof. There it is. He's going to do it all.
They will eventually poof. They will run screaming from your house if you keep that up.
Right. But it's kind of, and I think some of our commercials in our society where we're seeing where you have the couple sitting on the couch or in the chairs in the living room and 17 kids that are just going crazy nuts all around them. And they're just sitting there trying to look calm and go, oh my gosh, what did we get ourselves into?
As though they don't have any control either.
Right. And as if they're just waiting for little switches to turn on in the minds of their children.
By magic.
By development, by Cracker Jack's box, by something. I don't know where we've completely got this idea. I mean, I do, but I don't think a lot of society knows where we've gotten this idea. And it's not something that happens at all like that. It's something that is nurtured, and you can actively nurture your children's behavior.
Well, and that's one of the overall points that Dr. Siegel has throughout The Well-Brained Child, is his point is parenting changes your child.
Yes.
Right? Parenting has an impact on everything, who your child is going to be as an adult. And that is who his book is written to. His book is written to parents to encourage them to parent because it makes a difference, right? There is no magical switch. I regularly tell clients that a lot of these things I use the metaphor of going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, you have to work hard. That's how you get results. It hurts. You get sore over and over again. And you don't get results, before like 6 to 8 weeks. And then if you stop going, the results go away, right? I mean, it's probably one of my favorite metaphors because it's so accurate. And this is that too.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we've been talking about is we kind of opened the topic talking about how emotions don't last forever. But I think a different way to talk about it is that like emotions aren't always real. Emotions aren't always truthful, right? Because like last forever is the time component. But one of the additional elements to emotions, and I actually have this on my wall in my counseling room, is it says emotions are illogical. And it's not that they're always wrong. You can absolutely be angry about a thing and it be logical to be angry about that thing, but the emotion did not come about from a logical source.
Totally.
Right? It is only happenstance that the emotion may or may not be correct because it's not operating based on logic or truth. It's just operating off of emotion.
Right.
Right? So,
yeah. And I really love doing like buying cars and stuff.
Okay.
And one of the key things, and I've told this to all my friends and people when they're looking, the key number one thing to not making a bad decision and coming out with a terrible deal is to put your emotions aside, because they know that well, isn't this the perfect red? Isn't this the perfect whatever? So even as adults, that's something that sometimes even me knowing that can get caught up in. But you have to go, okay, my emotions aren't always telling the truth. They're not always leading in the right thing. And what I should do is write down these numbers and see that this is really not a good deal.
Emotions are governed out of the subconscious and the libraries of that. We'll do some podcasts on that to be able to explain that better in the future, because it is very confusing. But once you kind of get an understanding of how that works, then it becomes so much more clear. My favorite experience on a car lot is when my wife and I went there, and technically she just kind of wanted to look at the RVs and those types of things. And so it's just like, we're time to kill.
No shopping?
And it was not a shopping thing. It was just,
just a look.
We're just going to look.
Window
Allegedly,
shopping.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
no
I
intent
think
to buy.
we had gotten our new tires put on at the Les Schwab right next to this. And the salesman was really good at doing emotional imagery. And so he was really focusing on my wife, and I'm me. And with my training and experience, I am also very good at doing, emotional type of imagery. And so my favorite that he did was that he opened the cupboards and he said, these are just great spacious cupboards. And just go ahead and picture your favorite dishes up in these cupboards. Wouldn't they look so wonderful? And I'm like, geez, really? We got to do this. And so then I'm looking at the cabinet too, and honestly, it didn't have a very secure lock, and it's like, oh yeah, this lock is not real good here. So while we're imagining your favorite dishes, hun, let's imagine we hit a bump and it flies open and they fly across the room and shatter right over there into pieces. And at that moment she went, oh yeah, I don't like that. And I was like, man, the death stare I got from that guy.
Oh, I bet.
And it didn't stop there.
Of course it didn't.
And
he was trying to make a sale.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the only salesman I've ever run into that was adamantly yelling and screaming, chasing us off the lot. Now, we weren't running. We were just like, okay, we're done, dude. And he was, you'll never buy in this town again. You'll never, I can't believe this. And he had some emotions going on.
He had some emotions he needed to be reining in.
Yeah. Well, and he was trying to use emotions to manipulate that sale.
Yep.
And he, like you said, Josh, it wasn't based on whether or not we could afford anything. It wasn't based on some of the wonderful, unique features that really weren't that wonderful. It was just based on what can I do to get droplets in there that will get you to spend your money. And so that's a really good example, as you're saying, that just because you're feeling it and just because our kids are feeling it doesn't mean it's reality.
And we need to give them the ability to step back from those and analyze them for what they truly are.
Well, and I was just kind of thinking about it. I wonder if, an analogy of emotions are kind of like taste buds.
Keep going.
We assume that if it tastes bad, it's bad for us.
Okay.
And so, it's not an accurate representation of the reality. Now, I hate lima beans, and I'm going to stick with that as just a death thing to eat. But I have stories about that. But I also don't like peas. I don't like cooked peas. But from what I see in a lot of different research that I do on healthy eating, peas are up there in a lot of nutritious things. I prefer broccoli. And so I'm going to go with the broccoli. But it doesn't mean that peas are not nutritious. And so emotions are there, but they're not accurate representations per se.
Your
what
emotions,
that reality is.
Your taste buds will also tell you that you should be eating a steady diet of chocolate.
No, that's my brain.
Chocolate and pizza.
And dark chocolate over milk chocolate.
Right. Well,
now I'm into research, but that's not your point. Yeah.
But I mean, that is the metaphor, right? The things that we want are not always the things that are good for us.
Right.
And our emotions operate off of some similar illogical kind of motivations.
And when we're with our grade schoolers, when we're with our little kids, here's where we're really trying to help them be able to learn those pieces. And you take it up a step when you get into the junior high years. You know, and now there's a little more of that logic that can come in, but also more of those emotions in a general speaking way, and then levels out to a certain degree in high school, and then you've got more logic that can kind of be brought in there alongside the emotions. If we're working as parents all along the way Daniel is putting out in the book, then it gets easier generally as the child is getting older. It doesn't mean you won't have bad moments. We're not looking for or saying that you can actually have a Vulcan. You can't.
You wouldn't want one.
And, well, I mean, there are a lot of parents that might want one because it's much less trouble, so to speak.
They think
quote
they
unquote.
want one.
Yes. But it's not something that can happen. So you're still going to have bad moments. But if you have that nurturing and you have those pieces in there that help them understand their emotions, those bad moments are going to be easier generally to work with, and they're going to be fewer and fewer times that you're going to be stopping and working with that, because your child already knows so many of these different things you've taught them.
Exactly. And it feels like this topic is only just dovetailing into all of the rest of the things that we were talking about. It's like, how do you teach your children that their emotions are not all encompassing? Well, by helping them name them and identify them. And we talked about all of those things in previous, podcasts as well from this book. So yeah, it all just kind of dovetails.
And we'll have some different resources on our website that will work with, let's say that maybe you have grade schoolers and they don't really know a good emotional vocabulary. We'll have some different ways that you can pick up from our website that'll help you, that you can do right there at home, that will help that to develop.
You've been listening to the Empowering Choices Parenting Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, we would encourage you to visit our website at empoweringchoices.community. For a small monthly fee, we offer a website full of parenting courses and resources. You also have the ability to connect with parents going through the same struggles you are in a safe and private environment. Every time you purchase a membership to our site, we give away a membership to a parent in financial need. Help yourself become a better parent while helping others gain access to important parenting materials by supporting our podcast. Check us out at empoweringchoices.community or in the App Store by searching Empowering Choices. We'll see you on our next episode.